And as a member of the Senate Budget Committee, he leads a bipartisan task force that studies ways to increase accountability and improve government performance to reduce federal budget deficits. He also led a successful effort to compel the U.S. Veterans Administration to improve health care service and support female military veterans. But we all know him as a friend, a governor who's been across the state. He doesn't mind talking to us personally, and I can say he's been to Isle of Wight County during times of flooding, during times of hurricanes, and disasters, and now with the most recent thing when we had the closure of International Paper. He's been there several times to help us with job fairs, to be able to talk to the management, the corporate management, International Paper, and just try to pressure them into doing things. And I have to say, with his support and help, and across with other members of the state government, we've got International Papers doing something they have never done in the history of the company when they shut a plant down, and that's looking at repurposing. And I appreciate his help and effort that he's done to come out, and he just recently told me, he said, we need to set some job fairs up in that area again. I want you to get with me and do that. It's a pleasure to introduce you, Senator Warner, former governor of Virginia, a friend to all of us. Thank you, sir.
Lieutenant Governor Bolin, great to see you. Let me first of all commend both he and Governor McDonald. We have been working together on issues, whether it's been Joint Forces Command, some of the decisions of the Pentagon, and when we get into questions, be happy to answer some questions on that. And on economic development, I want to commend you and your administration for making some great progress in a very difficult time on job creation. Let me also say to all of you, it's great to see you again. It's great to see you. I missed you. I gotta tell you, this job I got hired for, these people in Washington are wacky. You know, there have been times, I've said this a couple times, when it has been so wacky in Washington, I even wish for the old days when I was in Richmond and when the General Assembly was there. That is saying something. But you know, I want to start by, you know, and I think I appreciated this a little bit as governor, but I even appreciate it more now as senator, by saying thank you to all of you for what you do. I mean, these are tough times to be in local government. You know, because whether you're in Richmond or Washington, we all make grand pronouncements at times. Big political sounding statements of commitment to do this or that or whatever. But then you all get stuck implementing it or dealing with it. And, you know, there aren't a lot of perks or benefits that go along with being on the county board or being a county administrator. You got to do it for your love of your community. And I don't think you get thanked near enough. And I just want to say I appreciate the service you provide for the great citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Today is I want to take, Lieutenant Governor Bolin gave you kind of a Virginia perspective. I want to give you my sense kind of on where we are nationally, the good, the bad, and the ugly, what I think we will be taking on a going forward basis. And then as time and interest allows, I'd be happy to take some questions too, because I'm sure everybody here is totally happy with what's going on in Washington, regardless of your political identification. One of the things, you know, I got up there, and it gave me a moment. I got on the banking committee right in the midst of kind of the financial crisis and everything melting down. And it gave me a moment to kind of, again, open up the hood and look into where we are and where we have been nationally with our economy. And I think if we're going to be honest with each other, and let me say at the outset, this is not a political incrimination of anyone, because both political parties have been responsible for some of these policies. But if we really are honest with each other, I think over the last decade in America, we have not had much of a growth or innovation economy. Over the last decade in America, we basically had an economy that was propped up by an overheated real estate market with prices that could never be sustained. And then we all got fooled into thinking this could be sustained because there was a creation, mostly off of Wall Street, of creating a whole series of new financial products that were supposed to be about lowering the cost of risk. When in reality, we created a financial house of cards that, as it started to unravel, not only almost brought our nation's economy down, but frankly almost brought the world's economy down. I'm all for innovation. Frankly, though, I wish we'd create a few less financial engineers and a few more real engineers that could build stuff, as opposed to some of the credit default swaps and CDO squares and all of these other instruments. American capitalism lived for close to 200 years without, and did pretty darn well. Now, coming out of that, I think we need to also pause, and I am not happy with where our economy's at. I think, again, Governor Wolin gave a good assessment of that we're slowly in Virginia, and Virginia is ahead of the rest of the nation in terms of where we stand. But I do think it's important as well to realize, as ugly as the last 22 months have been in terms of politics in Washington, we as a country are actually, I believe, better today than where we could have expected to have been, say, even as recently as 15 or 16 months ago. If we were having this meeting in the spring, Philip, of 09, when the stock market was at 6,500, we were losing 700,000 jobs a month, and we weren't sure we were going to see a penny back on any of the monies that were put out on the bank bailouts. And you'd ask any of the talking heads on whether Fox or MSNBC, we had taken an economy 15 months later, where the stock market's north of 11,000, where we're seeing 6 months straight of positive private sector job growth, and we were seeing 95 cents back on the TARP funds, that would have been viewed as wildly optimistic. But that's where we're at now. Of course, the Dow Jones being at 11,000 doesn't mean much if you don't have a job. And we still have unemployment that is way, way too high. Now let me say, I think how we got here, I'm going to talk again about some bad, but I know we've had a lot of bad news over the last couple of days on all the challenges, but I want to come with some good as well. Let me say something that will probably, hopefully be equally bipartisan and controversial. I want to be an equal opportunity offender here. But I believe that history, even though current American politics and current public opinion is uniformly against what I'm going to say on both of these accounts, but I think history will treat President Bush and then Secretary Paulson well with having the courage to step up and propose what's probably the most politically unpopular thing around, the TARP plan, the bank bailout plan, in the fall of 2008. I know that's not popular to say, but I don't think most folks realize we're actually about 95 cents on the dollar back on every one of those TARP funds, not the monies that the Fed used to bail out Fannie and Freddie, but on the so-called TARP program, we're 95 cents on the dollar back on that, and chances are before we're over, we're going to actually see a small profit. Now, Lord knows we should never be in that case. We should have never gotten in that case, and we should never be in it again. But I can tell you from a background on finance and business, we were at the teetering edge of a financial collapse. And it was not about bailing out the big banks, it was about keeping the financial system alive. On the other hand, I would also say that history will treat, even though, again, it is not politically popular, President Obama and Secretary Geithner, history will treat them well for creating the stimulus. Now, it was the single worst piece of political marketing I've ever seen in my whole career. And it was way overpromised to the American people about what it would do. And you all know better than most, but stimulus was really 3 buckets.